It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wide discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. So this Tuesday, an important day for some local residents as it's an election day and it's time to head out to the polls. Polls opened at 7 o'clock and it's now during the 8 o'clock hour, so maybe some of you have already cast your vote. Still have time as polls don't close until 7 p.m. today. And I think you won't be able to use the weather as an excuse to try to skip out of voting because today's weather is pretty terrific for Tuesday. Here's a look at that voting forecast. So as we take a look at what to expect for your Tuesday in South Mississippi, weather looks pretty nice. We're going to see plenty of sunshine and temperatures that will warm up this morning into the 80s. And eventually get to the upper 80s and lower 90s by this afternoon. So any lunchtime voting plans, you might want to tote a bottle of water with you in case you start to get thirsty because maybe you're sweating. It's going to be a bit on the hotter side around midday into the early afternoon. And then for dinner time, if you're maybe waiting until you get off from work later today to head out to the polls, that might be a little more comfortable with temperatures in the mid 80s. But still pretty warm. But all in all, the chance for rain today, slim. I can't go all the way to 0% because it's basically going to be almost like a usual summer day in that there might be a couple of little spotty showers popping up in a few places. But overall, I think most of us are going to be soaking in the sunshine, and only very few of us, if any at all, get soaked by a rain shower. And that also means with the UV index in the very high category, you will want to remember the sunscreen if you're going to be out and about for a while. That way you're avoiding getting sunburned. But it looks like a pretty nice Tuesday here in coastal Mississippi. There's going to be, of course, different weather depending on your location. Areas that are north of Interstate 10, probably on the hotter side, as temperatures there could reach the lower 90s. This includes places like the Kill, parts of Diamond Head that are north of I-10. If you are closer to the bay, might not go all the way to 91. You may only go into the upper 80s. Same thing for places like Gulfport and Biloxi and even D'Iberville, which they kind of straddle I-10. Parts of those areas are south, parts of those areas are north. So if you're in the part of Gulfport and Biloxi and D'Iberville that are south of I-10, well, the temperatures there might only be in the mid to upper 80s. But once you go northward, talking about Wool Market, talking about Orange Grove, the part of D'Iberville that is north of I-10, you're getting farther away from the coastal waters, so the temperatures are going to heat up more. And you might find afternoon temperature closer to 89, 90, maybe even 91. Same applies in Jackson County. Places closer to St. Martin might be around 89 or 90. Places like Ocean Springs, that is south of I-10, might only be around 87, 88. And even into the eastern part of the central part of the county, Goshen, looking at upper 80s, Van Cleve, probably close to 90. And in the eastern part of the county, Pascagoula, mid to upper 80s, Moss Point, the part of Moss Point near Escatawpa that is closer to I-10, might come close to 90 today, near the Trent Lott Airport, for example. And of course, once you go to the inland counties, well, all of Pearl River, all of Stone, all of George County, you're well north of I-10, so pretty easy to hit those lower 90s in a place like that. But all in all, a generally nice day today. I know those temperatures sound kind of hot, but it's actually not that bad compared to what happens 2 months from now when we are in August. It's coming. There's no escaping it. August in South Mississippi, we're talking about triple-digit temperatures. Heat index that's going to be in the dangerous levels over 113. Those days are to come in the future. And maybe it's nice to think about those days on a day like today, because it makes today pretty nice, relatively speaking, compared to what is to come. Now, while there is going to be the typical June heat with a spotty shower, we might actually see the heat increase tomorrow. It will feel like it because the humidity will come up. And that will also help us to see a little bit better rain chance as well. So let's talk about how it's going to start to feel a little bit hotter. This is a look at the heat index number. And today, I think that's going to be in the low to maybe mid-90s, which is pretty nice for June. All right, tomorrow, the heat index numbers, we're going to see more mid-90s and maybe even a few more upper 90s. And then take a look at Thursday afternoon. The heat index on that day, would not be surprised to see a few spots only a degree or two away from 100. So it is going to start to feel hotter and hotter. The reason for that and why it doesn't have that today is because today we're still being influenced by that blue H you see on the map, the high pressure that is situated near the southeast. And we are getting some of the relatively drier air on the eastern side of that along portions of the Gulf Coast. So this is why our sky is mostly sunny with the dry high pressure keeping the rain potential pretty limited. And it's also the high pressure, the expanse of it expands to basically anywhere you see that shield of clouds away from that, that's where the high ends. So if I were to draw kind of a circle of where that high is, it's kind of like this. So anywhere inside of that high, or anywhere, I actually drew it a little too small. Let me try one more time. Okay, so let's go way out here, something like that. So basically anywhere inside of that circle is high pressure, and you'll notice that in South Mississippi, we're basically inside of that circle today. But boy, is it so close, right? So just to our west in Louisiana and Texas, that's where the train of warmth and humidity is continuing to feed toward the northwest from the Gulf into Texas, into Louisiana, and also into areas in the plains. So that's why you see all of these rain showers and thunderstorms developing over some of the plain states, as that warmth and that Gulf moisture helps to fuel rain development and thunderstorm development in that region, as all of that just kind of is feeding right on up into the plains. So those are areas that will face a big rain chance today, but you can see where we are on the coast, the high pressure about right here, and again, we're just kind of feeding into the dry air around that high pressure, which is helping to keep things mostly dry across much of the eastern U.S. Now, over Florida, you can see some rain, and that's actually associated with, remember that swirl that we were tracking yesterday? Well, that swirl is an upper level disturbance, and you can see it really well defined on this water vapor imagery from the satellite. Now, the color scheme here, if we pause the motion for just a moment to just focus on the colors, you can clearly see this brown and orange color indicating how dry the air is upstairs in the air over Mississippi and the rest of the Gulf Coast. So that's why we're not expecting a really high chance for rain today. The dryness in the air will limit our local rain potential. But when we cut the motion back on, and you can see that well-defined circulation right there. That circulation is an upper level disturbance, and it is helping to kick some moisture out ahead of it right on into portions of Florida. That's why they are seeing those rain showers and thunderstorms today. And believe it or not, the National Hurricane Center is watching this area for tropical development. So it's, yes, the beginning of hurricane season, and we're already looking at an area of interest. I'm sure you already heard the news yesterday when it broke, but that continues today because that upper level system is going to be expected to create a surface area of low pressure somewhere near Florida, near Georgia, near South Carolina. A surface area of low pressure could form. And that low pressure system has a low chance of becoming a depression or storm, especially if it could get over those warmer waters of the western Atlantic at some point this week. That could give it that chance to become a depression or storm. The good news for us in South Mississippi is that anything that is trying to form in that area is likely going to just continue to move off to the east. We're not expecting any of this to try to come around toward the Gulf. So this is all going to be moving to the east because it is going to be steered by a large Bermuda area of high pressure. You can literally see the circulation. Just look right here on the winds. Let me blow this full screen for you. You can literally see, look how the winds are going around in a clockwise fashion right here. That's the high pressure. So that high is going to want to carry this particular system around its circulation. And so that's going to steer whatever tries to form there, depression or storm or nothing, just low pressure, whatever it's going to be steered toward the northeast, away from the Gulf. So that's fortunate for us, as we're not expecting any kind of concern about that at all. Even though there is that low chance for development in the West Atlantic, there's really nothing else to track in the tropics for the next 7 days. Now, beyond 7 days from today, some of the computer models have been spitting out some hype, some kind of la-la land is what I like to call it. When you go more than 7 days from the present day, computer model skill tends to really drop pretty dramatically. So it's important to not get too worked up if you are seeing people sharing images of, oh no, there will be a hurricane in the Gulf in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. That's more than 7 days from the present day, and so there's really not a lot of accuracy in computer model forecasts that far out into the future. I usually don't tend to address those things, especially not on television. There's no point in showing it if there's not a really high confidence that it will be something that actually happens. And I usually don't have that amount of confidence until it is within 7 days of the present day, and it's something that a model has been showing multiple times, and it's something that multiple models have both been showing for multiple times in a row. So you need a lot of things going before my forecast confidence in stuff like that is high enough. One other thing is that Saharan dust, which is going to be across the Atlantic basin, and that will also help to limit most of the tropical activity within the next few days. By the way, is it weird for a system to form in early June? No, it's hurricane season. Is it weird for one to form anywhere near the Gulf, the West Caribbean, or the West Atlantic? No, those areas are hotspots. Typical tropical hotspots for early June tend to be what we call homegrown storms. They're close to the North American continent. And this is because the Gulf water is warming, those coastal waters are warming, and sometimes you have some old fronts that are hanging out there, and sometimes you can get a swirl along one of them. That's kind of what's happening with the disturbance being tracked right now. The old front, remember we had a cool front on Friday? That front is now sitting out in the Gulf, and that old front combined with that upper disturbance might allow for a low pressure to form, which could become a depression or storm near the West Atlantic. And it's kind of like textbook for early June to see such development potential. Here's the big map showing the Saharan dust forecast. We do have a large-scale Atlantic high-pressure system which is going to continue to drift that Saharan dust from the coast of Africa into the Atlantic, into the Caribbean, and into portions of the Gulf. And you'll notice that there's another plume. While there might be some Saharan dust nearby right now, there's a thicker plume of it that's situated over Cuba and the Bahamas. And as we put this into motion, you'll notice that that gets closer to Florida by Wednesday, and then gets into the northern Gulf by Thursday, and gets close to the Gulf Coast, northern Gulf Coast, by Friday. So we might see an increase in some of the thickness of the Saharan dust over the northern Gulf by late this week. Even though there might already be some out there right now, this new plume could help to enhance whatever's there. And then there's more. There's a plume of Saharan dust that could be coming off the coast of Africa by this weekend, and that continues to swirl through parts of the tropical Atlantic. So no shortage of this stuff, and it's a pretty good thing to see in hurricane season, as it helps to limit tropical activity. While some storms can fight through Saharan dust, one thing you usually won't see when Saharan dust is present, you won't see like 4 and 5 systems getting named out of nowhere. That's one thing that you won't see. So it helps to limit the frequency of named storms from forming. Even though maybe 1 or 2 might manage to sneak in, you're not going to see this huge outbreak of tropical systems when you have that Saharan dust present across the Atlantic basin. Well, quick look at our 7-day forecast before we go, and you can see that again it looks pretty good with the summer-like pattern setting up. While we do have only a 20% chance for rain today, that chance will increase tomorrow because the air will be muggier, and that added moisture makes rain easier to come by. And that will continue into Thursday and Friday. Notice this temperature is cranking up. On the coast, we could have a high of 90 at some point on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And if you take a look at the inland forecast, their high temperatures could be even hotter. A 93 for a high on Friday in Wiggins, 95 for a high on Saturday in Wiggins. So we're talking some hot stuff heading deeper into the forecast period for the late week and weekend time frame. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. I hope that you have a terrific Tuesday. We'll see you again next time.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.